Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom is one of the strangest movies in the entire franchise, because it somehow manages to be both incredibly entertaining, but also incredibly uncomfortable at the same time. It's a movie that has all the ingredients of a great Indiana Jones adventure. Memorable action scenes, iconic John Williams music, exotic locations, practical stunts, scary villains, and Harrison Ford fully committing to the role. But at the same time, it's also noticeably darker, meaner, and more exhausting than Raiders. While I still think it's a good movie overall, it's definitely a step down from Raiders for me because it loses a lot of the fun and charm that made the first film so timeless. One thing that immediately stands out about Temple of Doom is just how different the tone feels from Raiders of the Lost Ark. Raiders had dark moments too, such as the face melting scene at the end, but it balanced it out with humor, adventure, and sense of wonder. It felt like an old school Avengers hero brought to life. This movie is about 10 times darker and more bleak and more intense. There are scenes with child slavery, child abuse, human sacrifices, bugs, cages, torture, brainwashing. For kids. And the movie spends a surprising amount of time lingering on that material. It creates an atmosphere that's more oppressive than it feels exciting. And even visually, the movie is dirtier and grungier compared to the bright desert adventures feel of Raiders. This is the movie that helped to invent the PG-13 rating, so yeah. The darker tone is also the main reason why the movie tends to divide fans so much, at least from what I've seen. Some people love that Spielberg and Lucas took risks and made something that's more intense. Others feel like they took it way too far. And yeah, I kind of fall somewhere in the middle. Like, I appreciate that the movie has its own identity. It isn't just trying to rehash things from Raiders, but there are definitely moments where it crosses the line quite a bit. The heart-ripping scene is the obvious example. From a filmmaking perspective, it's impressive, but it's also a moment where the movie fully embraces horror imagery in a way that's genuinely uncomfortable. At the center of it all, though, Harrison Ford is still awesome as Indiana Jones. Even when the material around him gets weirdly dark, Ford's charisma keeps the movie watchable. Indy still feels adventurous, clever, sarcastic, and human. One thing I do appreciate is that the movie pushes him physically and emotionally harder than Raiders did. He gets beaten up constantly, poisoned, brainwashed, and psychologically manipulated. There's a vulnerability here that makes him less invincible. The scene where Short Round snaps him out of the blood curse by burning him with the torch is one of the most emotional highlights of the movie, because it shows how important their friendship becomes. Speaking of that, Short Round absolutely steals the movie. Honestly, I think he's my favorite part of the movie. He and Quan give such an energetic and lovable performance, and he brings a sense of warmth and fun that the movie desperately needs. Without Short Round, I think the film would honestly feel almost unbearably bleak at times. He balances things out with humor and heart while also contributing to the action instead of just being the comic relief. He's resourceful, brave, and genuinely helpful throughout the story. The dynamic between him and Indy is honestly stronger than the romance aspect of the movie. They feel like real partners, and there's something weirdly wholesome about watching Indy slowly become a protective father figure toward him over the course of the film. The minecart chase is another major highlight, and probably the scene most people remember when they think about this movie. Even today, it's an incredibly impressive action sequence. The practical effects, pacing, editing, and stunt work are all fantastic. It's chaotic in the best way possible without becoming visually confusing. You can see the influence this scene had on adventure movies and theme park rides for decades afterward. It's probably the closest the movie comes to capturing the pure fun energy of Raiders. The rope bridge climax is also excellent and gives Indy one of his coolest moments in the entire trilogy. Unfortunately, the biggest weakness in the movie is the character Willie Scott. Now, I don't want to be too harsh because the actress Kate Capshaw is clearly playing the role exactly the way Spielberg intended, but the character just doesn't work for me nearly as well as Marion Ravenwood did in Raiders. Marion felt tough, independent, sarcastic, and capable. She could keep up with Indy and challenge him. Their arguments were entertaining because both characters had strong personalities and mutual chemistry. It's the same reason the Han and Leia dynamic works in the Star Wars trilogy. They clash constantly, but underneath they're arguing there's respect and attraction. With Willie, the dynamic feels completely different. Most of her role in the movie revolves around screaming, complaining, panicking, or reacting to gross things. And I get it, the part of the joke is that she's completely out of place in this dangerous environment, but the movie leans on that gimmick so heavily that it eventually just becomes exhausting. Instead of feeling like an equal partner in the adventure, she mostly feels dragged along by it. That makes the romance weaker because there isn't much balance between the characters. Indy and Willie argue constantly, but unlike Han and Leia or Indy and Marion, it rarely feels charming. It's mostly just annoying. That said, I do think it is genuinely sweet and kind of funny knowing that Kate Capshaw and Steven Spielberg ended up getting married after the movie, and they've stayed together for over 30 years. Especially by Hollywood standards, that's pretty awesome. Visually and technically, though, the movie is still extremely impressive. Spielberg's direction is phenomenal, even when the story choices don't fully work. The production design is massive, the stunt work is incredible, and John Williams once again delivers an amazing score. There's never a moment where the movie feels lazily made. Even the scenes I don't like as much are executed with a high level of craftsmanship. I also think it's interesting that this movie works much better when viewed as a prequel rather than a direct sequel to Raiders. Since it actually takes place before Raiders, Indy starts out a little bit more selfish and cynical. But by the end, after seeing the suffering of the village children and returning the sacred stones, you can see hints of the more heroic and compassionate Indy that audiences fell in love with in Raiders. It gives the character a subtle little arc that I appreciate more. Overall, Temple of Doom is a good movie, but it's also probably the least fun movie in the original trilogy. It has amazing action scenes, fantastic filmmaking, and unforgettable psychic with Short Round, but its darker tone, more graphic content, and weaker romance hold it back from reaching the level of Raiders. I still enjoy it and absolutely understand why some fans love it, but for me, it's the kind of sequel that's admirable rather than lovable. So for me, it gets a B, an 8 out of 10, and a 4 out of 5 stars.